Hey everyone, Olaf here, and today I'm going to show you how to make this cool animation in Blender. It's a kind of a cartoon canon animation with physics. It's only going to take around 25 minutes and it should be easy to follow, so let's get started. Okay, so you want to start off by switching to Cycles Render for better shading, and then you want to scale up the default cube, so click S to scale. This is going to be the floor and the walls of the animation. And then you click S then Z to scale it on the Z axis. Left click to confirm, and then go into edit mode. We're going to select the face select, right click, and then click X to delete the top face. Okay, zoom in with the middle mouse wheel, look around with the middle mouse button, and then we're going to add a new object. So click create, and we're going to start off by adding a cylinder for the cannon itself. And let's click RX to rotate it on the x-axis, so RX and 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. And then you want to go into edit mode, so click from object mode to edit mode. And we're going to face select, and then click X to delete the face. It's going to be kind of like the barrel. And then select the back of the cannon, and we're going to edit it, so go into increase and make the increase value to 1, which is for the subdividing later. And then we can start to extrude, so click E to extrude, S to scale it down. And then we're going to make this area softer, so I'm going to click Ctrl B to smooth it out and use the middle mouse wheel to add more vertices and edges to make it look smoother, and you can add as many as you want. It makes it look a lot better. Left click to confirm, and then we're going to go to the front part of the cannon and click edge select. So you have to go down and select edge select. To select all the edges around the circle, you just have to hold in Alt while you select them. Now click E to extrude, S to scale it down. Then you want to extrude it inwards again, so click E to extrude, and then Y to extrude it on the Y axis. Okay, that was the barrel, and I'm going to go into the settings, so go into modifiers, add modifier. We're going to make a subdivision surface modifier. That's the reason why we added some increase to some of the parts. And as you can see, it looks a lot smoother and a lot more cannon-like. So let's go back to object mode, and I'm going to go to the bottom of this cannon, and I'm going to add the lower part of the cannon. So left click to add a 3D cursor, and then I'm going to go into create and add a sphere. You can add a UV sphere, and then you can scale it down with S and Z to scale it on the Z axis to make this design. You don't have to make it exactly the same, it doesn't really matter for the final animation, but I like to make this design, and you can try out whatever you want if you want something else. Okay, so I'm going to grab it a little bit downwards, click G then Z to grab it on the Z axis, left click to confirm, and then click S then Shift Z to scale it on the X and Y axis without scaling it on the Z axis. And then I'm going to go into add modifier and add a subdivision surface modifier again to make it smoother. And you can increase the subdivisions as much as you want for the final render. And you can also make the shading smoother, which is kind of a way to make it look more subdivided without actually subdividing it. And it saves you a lot of power. Okay, so I'm going to select the barrel, and I'm going to hold in Shift and select both of them. Click Ctrl P and set them parallel to each other so that they follow each other. So when you grab this one, GZ on the Z axis, you'll see that the top part also follows. Okay, and as you saw in the final animation, I had kind of a cube around to make it look more stationary. So I'm going to left click on the bottom of it and add a new cube. Okay, let's just make sure the 3D cursor is right below it, and I'm going to add a cube. And let's scale it. I'm going to click S set to scale it on the Z axis. And then to scale it again, I just click S Shift set to only scale it on the X and the Y axis. And again, G set to grab it on the Z axis. Okay, so now I have the very basic design, and I'm going to start adding the particles. And what I'm going to do to add the particles is to add a plane inside the barrel of the cannon. And I'm just going to smooth it out a little bit on the main crease. And then I'm going to go, let's just click Alt and make it smoother. You don't really have to do this, this is just some design changes. Okay, so I'm going to go back to object mode and add an emitter inside the barrel. And as you can see, I'm going to add a 3D cursor in the middle and add a plane. Okay, so add a plane, and then you want to rotate it on the x-axis, so click RX90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. Click GY to grab it on the y-axis, scale it down with S. And this is going to be the thing that pops out all the cannonballs, or kind of the blue cannonballs. Okay, so I'm going to set it parent to the barrel, so holding Shift and click Control P to set it parent. So when you click RSet now and rotate the whole thing, you're going to see that everything follows each other. Also just the barrel if you just rotate that one. So that way we have control over everything. Okay, so I'm going to go into the particle settings, click N to remove the coordinate settings and all that. And yeah, let's go to the particle settings, add a new one. Click New. And as you can see a lot of settings. And I'm going to add a UV sphere, which is going to be our cannonball, which the emitter is going to emit. Just make sure to scale it down. You don't really have to scale it down because we can change this in the emitter settings. But for now, let's just mess around with the ball. Okay, I'm going to go into the modifier, add a subdivision surface modifier, and make sure to make it smooth. Okay, and then we're going to add a material, and I'm going to make this one blue. We can change this later on, but I'm just going to make it blue for now. And move it to the other layer, so that we don't have to have it in the scene, because it's going to be emitted and it's not going to stay there on the side of the cannon. Okay, and you want to start off by selecting object in the render settings, and make sure to select the second sphere that we just added. That way you can see that the emitter pops out a lot of spheres, which is the object we just added the subdivision surface modifier on. Okay, so make sure the emitter object velocity is a lot higher, so that it actually shoots out all the spheres. Okay, so you can just change these settings a lot until we have the result we want. But I have to make these sphere larger and fewer. So I'm going to increase the size a lot, not this much. Make them a little bit smaller. And we have to find a way so that they pop out the same place every time, not so randomly like we do now. And we also have to decrease the number of spheres popping out, so that we don't have too many at the same time. As you see now, kind of looks better. It's still too many, but it's not going to be realistic. It's kind of a cartoon cannon. And I found out that the way to make the emitter the most accurate, I just have to make the emitter plane smaller. So you just click S to scale it down and make it small. And when you see the animation now, it almost shoots perfectly. So if you make it even smaller, you can make it even more accurate. I'm just going to save it for now, so that if I do anything wrong, I can just go back. And you can give it whatever name you want, and you can save it wherever you want on the computer. Just make sure to give it a name and click enter. Okay. Okay, so now it's time to add some physics to the animation. So I'm going to add a collision to the emitter, and collision to the floor, and collision to the rest of the parts of the cannon. That way the balls are going to bounce around in the simulation. And let's just try to rotate it and see how the physics work. Okay, click play. And even though the frame rate is pretty bad in this recording, you can still see that the animation works and that the physics work. But I don't think this is a very interesting animation, so I'm going to improve it. And I'm going to show you how to improve it. So let's go into pause again and select the floor itself. Click S, then Shift Z to scale it only on the X and the Y axis to make it a larger scene with a larger floor. And if you click play again now, you can see that the simulation is a lot larger, and it looks really cool. You can also see that it kind of bounces. But I also want to add some keyframes to the animation so that the cannon actually moves around. But before we do that, I'm just going to adjust a few things and add some lighting. So I'm going to make the lifetime of the animation last 250 frames so that the balls actually don't disappear. And I will also just rotate the barrel a little bit so that it shoots up higher. So I'm going to select the barrel, right click to select, and then click R to rotate it a little bit so that it shoots up a little bit higher. I'm going to grab it a little bit upwards as well, and now it's probably going to be a little bit better. So let's go back to play and see how it looks. I think that looks cooler because it shoots up higher. And I probably want to make the emitter a little bit stronger in terms of how long it shoots by increasing the set emitter object value. Click play again, and as you see now it shoots a lot stronger and a lot further, and that looks really cool. So I'm just gonna keep it like this and move on in the tutorial. Okay, maybe a little bit weaker because it shoots kind of too far up now. Okay, so let's go back, and the next step I'm gonna do is to add some lighting to the scene. So I'm gonna remove the default lamp and add a plane instead. And to move it around, I'm just gonna click R to rotate, G to grab it, and click S to scale it up. It's gonna be our main source of light. I'm not gonna make a very advanced lighting setup this time. I'm just gonna add a basic emitter of lights. So click emission on the material, and let's go into rendered mode and see how it looks. It's still really weak, so we need to increase the strength. So make it, let's say, around this, but maybe a little bit weaker, or we can just grab it further away to make it weaker. Okay, grab it up, scale it even more, and I think it's pretty strong now. You can also add more lights if you want to make it brighter. Okay, so right click the lamp, go into numpad 0 to go into the camera, and click Shift F to go into fly cam mode. And now we can move around in the scene and find the spot we want to have in the beginning of this animation. Just make sure the clipping is higher so that you can actually see the whole scene. Zoom in with the middle mouse wheel, and let's go into the material of the cannon itself and add a new material. So you can add whatever color you want also to the floor, and just mess around with the colors. You can also change the world settings, which is the background color, and you can make it dark, you can make it light, you can give it kind of like a skyish blue. You can just choose whatever you want. The colors don't really matter for the animation itself, so just add the colors you want to have. Okay, and now I finally add the colors to the cannon. And let's see, what color do we want to have? I think in the final animation we had some bluish colors. But of course, as I said, add whatever colors you want to have. Okay, so let's make it blue. A little bit dark maybe. And then select the lower part of the cannon and make sure to add the same material. And let's add a new material for the stationary cube itself. And I'd like to make it a little bit darker than the floor. Okay, so I think this looks really cool. And let's go down to, and a way to see the materials without actually going to rendered mode is to go into the material viewport, where you're going to see the colors, but you're not going to have like the lagginess of the rendered mode. And as you can see, oh, this is better. Okay, so as you can see now, the animation works just fine, and we have the emitter, we have the physics, which make them bounce and stop at the wall. And I think this animation works really good so far. And we're going to finish up the rest of this tutorial. So click pause. And I'm just gonna make the walls taller. So I'm gonna select the walls and go into edge select and hold in Alt, or just click Shift and select all the top edges. And then you want to click G and set to grab it on the Z axis to make the walls really tall so that you can't see the background in the final render. Now it works, and now I'm going to animate the movement of the cannon, and I'm going to show you how. So the way that I'm going to do that is just to rotate it around. So I'm going to go into the coordinate settings, so click N to make the coordinates show up. There you can see my screencast, but I'm going to go to the top. Then we're going to click I, and I to keyframe the coordinates. And then you want to move forward in time. And then we're going to increase the rotation value on the cannon so that it moves around. And then we're going to keyframe it by clicking I, and I on the coordinates. And we're going to rotate it even further. So click R, then Z to rotate it on the Z axis. And then we're going to click I, and I on the coordinates and dimensions and scale and so on. And you can animate this as much as you want. You can even do it here. Click R, then Z to rotate it on the Z axis. Let's just rotate it the whole way around. And then click I, and I. Okay, so let's try to see how it looks in the animation. Go back to frame 1 and select the emitter and add a transparent material to it so that you can see it in the final render. I think this scene kind of looks too dark from some angles, so I'm just gonna make the lighting or the light emitter a little bit stronger. So numpad 0, and I think I'm gonna select it and make it stronger and larger. So select it, right click, and then click S to scale. And if you scale it up a little bit, it's gonna be a lot brighter. So I think this is good. And obviously in the final render, the blue color is a little bit different. And the walls and the floor is a little bit darker, I think. But you can easily change this so that you can give the same look as in the final animation I made. It's basically gonna look the same anyway. And even though we have a really low FPS, you can see that the animation works just fine. And if you want to make the cannon shooting even more accurate, you can just make the emitter smaller. Okay, so it's just 5 minutes left of the tutorial, and I'm just going to edit a few more things before I start making the rendered animation. And the first part I want to do is to go into the emitter and make sure it's a little bit smaller, because I don't think the Canon is really accurate at the moment. So just make it smaller so that the emitter emits almost the same place every time with the cannonballs, which looks a lot better. Okay, so the next step is to scroll down a little bit and make sure the size is a little bit larger. This is up to you if you want to change it or not. And I think the size looks really good in the Canon. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. Go back, click play, and yeah, I think the emitting looks a lot better now. So I'm gonna go back to pause, and now I want to animate the camera itself, and I'm gonna show you how to animate the camera. So first you want to select the camera, right click on the camera to select it, and we kind of need to go back a few frames. So right click the camera, and then you want to click I, and I on the coordinates, scale, and rotation. And then you can move a little bit back in time. Click Shift F to go into fly cam mode and just go backwards like this. And then you want to click I again. And maybe we can animate the camera a little bit more. Let's see. Let's go to this frame and then click Shift F again and just move around with W, A, S, and D, just like in a video game. And then click I, and I. And as you can see now, we have a camera animation. Okay, so from around frame 30, you can see the camera moves. You can see all the balls that are emitted in the scene until it turns around towards the camera, and you can see all the cannonballs just popping out. You can obviously make a lot better camera animation than I did, but I just wanted to show you how to add keyframes to the camera and make a camera animation. Okay, maybe we should delete these keyframes and just make it so that the Canon is more visible in the animation itself. So I'm just going to go to this frame, click Shift F, move around W, A, S, and D, and point the camera towards the Canon so that you can see the Canon, the whole animation, which is better. Okay, so I like this better. So let's go to the camera and increase the resolution quality to 100%, and we can start rendering. I want to increase the frame rate to 30 FPS, so 30 images per second, and make sure the sampling value is as high as you want it to be, and you want to select a place to save the final animation. So I'm gonna go to Documents, Blender Files, TMP, and just save it. You can save the final images wherever you want. I'm gonna make a new folder, and we're gonna render all the images into PNG first. So you click Animation, and then it's gonna turn all your rendered images to PNG. And then you want to just click Animation if you want to animate, or just click Render if you want to render one image. And I don't really like the colors, so if you want to add a dark blue color or change the materials, you should, because it's going to look a lot better if you mess around with the colors and the lighting and just the overall colors of the scene. Okay, and I think this looks good. I added kind of like a glossy material to the scene, and it gives it definitely a different look, but you don't have to. Okay, so let's go back to rendered mode, and it kind of looks too bright right now, so I'm just gonna decrease the strength, and I think this color looks good. And as I said, in the final image, the floor and the walls are a lot darker, and the bluish color is a little bit darker as well on the Canon. And change it if you want to. Okay, so perfect. Now we can render the final animation. Then you just want to click animation, or render if you just want one image. This is what it looks like in the end, with a little bit different colors, but it's basically exactly the same. And you can download the finished file from my website. Thank you for watching.